Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Hi, I'm Laura Whalen. I'm the Executive Director of the Northwestern Alumni Association, and I am thrilled to see you all here today. I must first recognize Jenna Martin, who is on our staff, who worked really hard to provide this beautiful weather for you today, so you have a very nostalgic experience of time on campus here in Chicago in April. So for those of you that have traveled long distances, make sure to thank her for this great weather. I'm supposed to welcome you as students, alumni, parents, friends of Northwestern, but today I look into a crowd of students. You're here, you're our lifelong learners. It's the 47th year of A Day with Northwestern, and I can't say enough how excited we are to have you be a part of a day where you're challenging yourself intellectually, and you're also getting a small taste of what the Northwestern Will strategic plan is all about. It's about transforming our students, our community, our alumni, and the world, and the impact that Northwestern has. And with that, of course, is a part of our campaign, the Campaign for Northwestern We Will, which we are in the process of raising $3.75 billion. And I think you see some of the transformation that's happening on campus with the buildings. But what more profound and transformational is what's going to happen inside of those buildings. And so hopefully in years to come with the A Day with Northwestern, we'll have the opportunity to be in some of those buildings and see some of these transformational experiences. So it'd be a regret if I wasn't able to thank all of you that have been a part and continue to be a part of the Campaign for Northwestern. In addition to all of the opportunities that we have today with the Northwestern Alumni Association providing rich content, intellectual stimulation, we've also launched a new mentorship program. So if you have the opportunity to grab one of the business cards, not only are we providing mentorship opportunities now for our students on campus, but also for alumni to alumni. And so if you're interested in having a mentorship opportunity or also being a mentee, make sure to grab a business card, register, and become a part of the Northwestern Mentorship Program. Now I would love to introduce Chris Rooney, who is the chair of our A Day with Northwestern. And please make sure that you give him, and not only him, but the entire A Day with Northwestern board, a round of applause for the rich content and the day that they've provided for us. And so now I bring Chris Rooney up.
All right, and thank you, Laura. And welcome, everyone. As Laura mentioned, this is the 47th annual A Day with Northwestern. As Laura mentioned, I'm a graduate of both the College of Arts and Sciences from '96 and from Kellogg in 2002. And I've been very fortunate to stay engaged throughout my alumni years with the university, from the times when I used to attend this program in the audience just like yourselves. I'm very proud of the program we put together today. It's been a really exciting, diverse group of speakers and topics, and I hope that you guys are enjoying the afternoon as well. I wanted to extend my personal thanks to the other members of the all-volunteer alumni board, and I'd like to introduce them to you briefly. So when I call your name, please stand up, and audience, please hold your applause until the end. Starting with immediate past chair Larry LaTourette, Cynthia Doucette, Valerie Holton, Greg Kamika, Richard Liebman, John Ormsby, Howard Prager, Robert Ronayne, and Kimberly Weisensee. And one more, our colleague from this distinguished alumni group, Georgianne Chalmers, who unfortunately not with us today, she's traveling. Also wanted to recognize, as Laura mentioned, Jenna Martin from the Alumni Association. Thank you. This is a very hardworking, all-volunteer board that puts all this together. We'd love to hear your thoughts on A Day with Northwestern 2016. So at the conclusion of today, you will all receive a survey in your inbox, and I'd appreciate it very much if you would actually take a look at that and fill that out. It's a way that we gather feedback from you on what's working well with the program and things that you'd like to see improved in the future. There's also a comments section, and we actually read every single one of those comments. So please take a look at that survey and let us know your thoughts on how to continue making A Day with Northwestern better in the future. Before we get started, I'd like to encourage all of you to silence your cell phones. There is one acceptable use of cell phones during the presentation today, and that's to get social. So if you'd like to live tweet today during the presentation or after, you can do so with the adaywithnu hashtag. It's adaywithnu, all one word, no spaces. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our early afternoon keynote speaker, Orbert Davis. Orbert earned his master's degree with the Beaton School of Music in 1997. He has since won an Emmy Award and been both a successful entrepreneur and leader of Chicago's arts and culture community. Mr. Davis also has purple running through the blood of every limb in his family tree. His wife, Lisa Parker Davis, is a Northwestern graduate and a faculty member at the Feinberg School of Medicine, and their daughter, Zoe, is a freshman at Medill. Zoe is in attendance today. In 2004, Orbert co-founded the Chicago Jazz Philharmonic, where he serves as conductor and artistic director, and he has passed his love of music to younger generations by founding Jazz Alive and Discover Music, Discover Life, an interdisciplinary enrichment program that operates in 25 Chicago area schools. He also hosts a weekly jazz radio show, The Real Deal with Orbert Davis, on Friday nights on Chicago's WDCB-FM. Today, Orbert will give you a presentation entitled The Urgency of Now. He'll share his advice on building a foundation on your past to maximize your potential for the future while still living a rewarding life in the present. Please welcome me in welcoming Orbert Davis.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it, man. Thank you. So as I was leaving home, I heard a whimper in a case, and it asked me, "You're not taking me today?" Instruments do have personalities, you know, but it's already mad at me because I didn't name him or her. I don't know. But anyway, it is my pleasure to be here, and I do thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity to share with you this afternoon. And again, I'm very proud that I am a Northwestern alumnus and the husband of a Northwestern alumni. And I'm also the brother-in-law of a Northwestern alumna, my wife's sister, and then, of course, the father of a current Northwestern freshman. And I just have to embarrass her at least once to make her stand up. So, Zoe! So my Northwestern experience was pretty intense. It was a one-year program, and being that I was in my late 30s when I decided to get my master's degree, but I'm very appreciative to my instructors who were very flexible and allowed me to merge my current career with academic aspirations. So my degree is in jazz pedagogy, but my passion was to learn as much as I could about African and African American history. My fondest memories were the hours spent at Northwestern's Melville Herskovitz Library of African Studies. Awesome place, changed my life. The urgency of now. So the urgency of now is actually a chapter, if you will, of a three-part concept that I really developed the evening of December 1st, 2015. It was actually meant to be my New Year's resolutions. With my first goal always being get organized. So trying to figure out how to do that. And when I look around my studio at home or the house and anything, and this morning was a good case of it because 2 days ago I had my adapter for my computer and I kept staring at it. There it is, there it is. This morning, no idea. So we're looking everywhere, and I then had to go outside and scrape the car. No, but the urgency of now is this call to get organized. But also there's what I call the case for advocacy. And then the final chapter is building for the future. Unfortunately, because I only have about an hour, I'm not going to discuss the second two chapters, if you will. We'll focus on the first, which is the urgency of now. You can think of the urgency of now as a filing of priorities based on focusing on the things that are the utmost importance, those things that are crucial for one's existence. It's kind of like putting on your oxygen mask first. You know, we can't build the future without being fed today. Sometimes we think so much about the future that we're not living in the present time. So this concept has become my 2016 mantra or method for success for my Chicago Jazz Philharmonic and Discover Music, Discover Life teams, our teachers, our instructors, and our army of musicians. Not to mention, it's the topic of daddy lectures for Zoe and her 3 siblings. So at this point on, Zoe, you've heard this before. In the car at least 4 times. But before I dive into my theories, I must tell you that this presentation is not meant to be strictly autobiographical. I consider myself a work in progress. And it's difficult for me to, really talk about myself. I think my jazz nature kicks in, and that's once a performance over, the one thing that's on my mind is getting back to the practice room. It's just a little level of dissatisfaction of what I could do better, but also the anticipation of knowing that tomorrow is going to bring something dynamic or something different. It's not going to be the same. Every day is going to be the same, and every day of my life has been. So I've broken down the urgency of now into 4 categories: dreams, faith, opportunities, and work. Dreams. What are dreams? I believe dreams are based on our experiences, our wishes, and one important thing that all of us have, and that's imagination. It starts with what we want to become. I think it's unfortunate that we pressure high schoolers to decide in high school, what do you want to be when you grow up? And then they're on a very intense track to not change their mind, to work hard, only many of them to discover that what they've prepared for was not necessarily their dream. But fortunately for me, it was an easy decision, no brainer. Ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up when I was 10 years old, a musician. Ask me when I was 18 what I wanted to be, a musician. And if you ask me when I turn 70 what I want to be when I grow up, the answer will still be the same, a musician. So dreams should always expand and evolve. My dream of being a musician has evolved to be someone who could not only play music, but be a catalyst for change, for the benefit of others. But it's not by choice. I wish I could say that I planned everything this way. In my undergrad years of college, I was part of a self-proclaimed group of musical elites. You may know us as snobs. Those hypocritical individuals who judge fellow music majors by their majors. We believe that those who couldn't play majored in music education. And those who couldn't play or teach did that other thing that was offered called music therapy, and I never asked anyone what that was. But I was very fortunate through college to work as a sideman and even more as a studio musician, especially during my junior and senior years, and was able to actually pay for college working as a professional. And things got quite busy. So even after graduation, 10 years was basically a blur. I just remember wearing a tuxedo every day because during the day I would play recording sessions for commercials and the like, movie scores and things, and the evening playing somewhere with a tuxedo. One thing about dreams alone is that they can die, and it's easy. How do you kill a dream? Wake up. It's that easy. Don't expect hard answers from me. Everything's going to be obvious. And most of the time, it's impossible, or I think maybe 99% of the time, it's hard to reactivate a dream once we've awakened. Reality always changes the channel. 1996, there were 3 events that caused my dreams to change in a very radical way. Within months of each other. In the spring of 1996, I was in Brazil. My wife was pregnant with Zoe, and we were performing in a community center, and there was a group, really a class, that were performing capoeira, the African dance. It's a dance, but it's also a very militaristic form of defense. And so, we saw them come in, and immediately, what do jazz musicians do? Come on up, come on up. So they had the bitten bows and different instruments, and we jammed for hours on the stage. So after the performance rehearsal, I was talking to my interpreter, and I said, wow, this is unbelievable. I said, tell me more about the African Brazilians. And she said, what? I said, the African Brazilians. You know, like, I'm African American, and she got really offensive. There are no such thing. That's what's wrong with you North Americans, you United States. You put everything in categories. You know, she said, we are all Brazilian. That hit me. Partly because I thought I knew nothing about history, nothing about African history, nothing about Africa. You know, I like most people, put Africa in one category, and we say, Africa. But when I was a student, a great musician, we call him Zimology, from South Africa, came, and I had a chance to ask him a question that, as a resident of South Africa, and let's just say you're on the northern border, and across the border is Zimbabwe, and you meet someone from Zimbabwe. I said, do you call him brother? He said, absolutely not. I said, no. I said, they're from Zimbabwe, I'm South Africa. But what do we do here? We tend to like to put everything, whether it's, you know, colors or Latino, you know, everything in one box, so we identify it. But that's not how our crayons work. Also that year, 1996, was a monumental year for me because it was the death of my mother and the birth of my first child. So I saw life end and I saw life begin. Speaking of life ending, I was a part of the original team for the Ravinia Jazz in Schools program. And part of our job was to travel to various inner city high schools and teach music. And the main goal was not only to level the playing field, but to provide opportunities for residents of Chicago, students and parents, to know what Ravinia was about. But I found that every day my mission became less and less and less about music and more about life. So one day, Manly High School, I'm teaching at Manly, 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't know why band is always like the crack of dawn. Holy cow. But we're teaching early, and there was a student who dressed far better than I did. And he looked like Miles Davis, and a trumpet player. And he had a good tone, he had character and sound. I said, man, you are really good. You got to work on this. The first class, the band director said, don't worry about him. He's going to be dead in a month. And he wore suits because he was very involved in gang activity and drugs. And sure enough, 1 month later, he was dead. I don't remember his name. It really hit me hard, partly because during that same time, my business partner and I were studying a lot about music advocacy. The fact that studying music strengthens student academic performance, that sequencing, skill building, instruction in music integrated with the rest of the curriculum can greatly improve children's performance in reading and math. Children who study a musical instrument are more likely to excel in all of their studies, work better in team, etc. Students with music programs have an estimated 90% graduation rate and a 93.9% attendance rate compared to schools without music education. So I started to ask the question, so if music advocacy facts are true, why is music and the arts the first choice of elimination in times of budget crises? Shouldn't music be medicine for students who are the most at risk for failure? Why aren't music and the arts used for preventative measures? Could music have saved my young friend's life? So what fuels a dream to continue to burn despite reality's effort to douse its flames? Faith. Now, it's easy to say things like believe in yourself or have faith in your abilities, but for me that simply wasn't enough because I knew myself too well. I love sleeping. You know, I gained almost 30 pounds while being a student in 1 year. Eating late, not sleeping, you know, all those things. Anyway, but all I can say about this is that I am so glad that when I was a child, my parents took me to church and Sunday school, where I learned that faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen, or things not even felt in reality's world. And evidence is real. You know, evidence is a factor that can demand a guilty verdict. We can expect evidence to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. So if faith is the evidence of things hoped for, can faith be a reflection of truth? Can faith be real, not just hope? So it was in Sunday school where I learned to place my faith in God through Jesus Christ. And that faith became real for me in 1996 when it demanded action, movement, playing it forward, making a difference, to get it together, to enroll as a Northwestern student, to learn. This action in faith transformed my mirror dreams into window dreams, dreams of mission and of purpose, new reasons to wake up every morning, to be positioned for action through opportunities. Now, can we control our opportunities? Maybe. You know, we hear that opportunity knocks and the door of opportunity opens. And opportunity is being at the right place at the right time, and that is definitely true. But I always think, and this is part of my daddy lectures, that if my children were born in America in 1800, their chances for success would have been slim to nil, and their dreams would have been cloudy at best. But it's 2016. Years later, opportunities are all around us, you know, and dreams can turn into reality much easier. But we always note that things are not perfect. They never are, and they never will be. Sometimes when the sound of opportunity knocking is drowned by the voices, the noises of hatred, racism, and bigotry, we have to find ways to amplify opportunity's rhythm, to break down those locked doors and create our own right places at the right time. When I wrote that, my wife says, "You sound like you're giving a graduation speech," but I had to say it anyway, because we're lifetime learners. Anyway, it is important to realize as well that opportunities are not just created for or squelched by external factors. We can create opportunity, or we can become the greatest threat to our opportunities. So immediately after graduating in 1997 from Northwestern, my business partner Mark Ingram and I created a program designed to position music and the arts into many schools as possible. We wanted to start with the public schools. We wanted to answer those questions, you know, so that every obstacle, well, for us, every obstacle became an opportunity, and not without bumps and bruises, especially in our first 5 years. I mean, I think we quit 15 times and started back again. But we believed that music is a medicine for students who are at risk for failure. We believe that music and the arts should be implemented for preventative measures. And we believe that music involvement can save lives. So through the years, we started a program called Music Alive, and we were very fortunate through a lawsuit through the Archdiocese. Long story. Oh my goodness, we had a contract with them for 10 schools, and in the 11th hour, they pulled out. They have a good attorney. So we were able to agree to have 5 schools, and I was the main teacher. We had 3 other teachers. I taught in 3 of the 5 schools. And and teaching 6th graders. And developing the curriculum. The curriculum is based on the idea that music can teach anything. So we would use the inherent qualities or elements of music to connect with reading, math, science, history, social studies. So we would teach students, for instance, American geography by playing music from Nashville, from Texas, from New York. And again, these kids never heard anything outside of music that they're bombarded with through commercialism. So to hear something outside, and what's funny is that every single student, we'd play like Hondo, And the student would say, yuck, I hate classical music. And we'd say, how do you know? The very next class we'd play Stravinsky. And they'd say, okay. John Williams. All of a sudden, isn't that the Star Wars theme? No, this is classical music, you hate it. But I love Star Wars. You see where we're going. Well, then you love classical music. And then we taught students, first of all, to listen, to think, and then to create. And through time, Musical Life became Discover Music, Discover Life. And we focus now on specifically teaching reading and math through concepts of music. And if I had a lot of time, I would go into details, but I won't. I believe that doing the right thing, I was seriously willing to put my career on hold to do this because it's so important. And I find myself getting older, and it's like, well, so what's next? Do I continue, doing this thing that I love, be able to go to a recording studio, playing music perfectly the first time, and all the pressures. Plus, when I look at the end of the year, I say, that's all I got paid for the year? We got to find something else. No, but I believe by having our heart in the right place, we were given an opportunity that is actually, I believe, it should be the wrong place at the wrong time. I mean, who starts a professional orchestra, all professionals, 60 people, in a time where orchestras are downsizing, and then attempting to play a music that no one plays, called third stream? It's the blending of classical and jazz. We got to be crazy. It's like, how does one start with, well, I just told I do that all the time. I try to tell a joke and I tell the punchline first. I'll do it anyway. How does one end up with $1 million in jazz and education? You start with $2 million. Yes, everything we owned except our houses went into this. Chicago Jazz Philharmonic, as you see, it's a massive orchestra with 60 plus people, jazz musicians in a classical environment, classical musicians in a jazz world, but creating a new paradigm, which we didn't really quite understand this when we first started, that not only would it bring music together, but it brought musicians together. Musicians who never talked to each other. Musicians in which their higher education experience was regulated to, those are the jazz guys over there, we're the classical people over here. Never played in ensembles together, but to bring them together. But then what's even more important is that we developed a totally different audience that were willing to take risks. And then also our students. Chicago Jazz Philharmonic, we sort of, well, I'll talk about this in a minute. Third stream performance, so the blending of classical and jazz. I believe this was at Symphony Center a few years ago. Third stream education. The kids you see in this picture, they will one day be future members of Chicago Jazz Philharmonic. And then an opportunity that really landed in our lap, which we call third stream global education and cultural diplomacy. And we've had connections with the university in Poznan, Poland, and just recently in Havana, Cuba. So I'll talk about Cuba in a minute, but this is I playing at a restaurant with Cuban musicians. And we do call it cultural diplomacy. So very quickly, what is third stream? Because it's a term that we wrestled with, especially the last 5 years, to change. Because, how many of you have heard the term third stream before? Wow. Yeah, musician, yeah. So here's the problem. How do you market something that no one's ever heard of? And it sounds academic, but the person who coined the phrase basically was talking in an interview, and he was asked about it. He just said third stream, because he said that classical music was first stream, jazz being the second, and the combination being third. And that person was Gunther Schuller. We were very fortunate to not only befriend him, but in 2015, just 2 months before he died, perform a concert where he came to the concert by himself from Boston. And he's so funny. In rehearsal, we thought he wasn't going to make it. He was very ill at that time. But as soon as we started playing the music, he started, French horn 2, little softer in that section. Trumpet 4, I can't hear you. Like, whoa. Then he got on my case. Stop cueing the people. You wave your arms. You're supposed to know when to come in. I love it. So we also had the pleasure of having him speak during intermission, and he basically passed the baton on to Chicago Jazz Philharmonic to continue Third Stream. So I would be remiss if I did not have an example for you to hear. This is at Symphony Center. There's the date. February 6, 2015. This is Gunther Schuler's Concertino for Jazz Quartet and Orchestra. And I cued it, it's about a 12-minute piece. I cued it sort of in the middle. You'll definitely hear this blending of classical and jazz. Able to do something that when he recorded this in the 1960s, he could not find an orchestra that could swing. So he was very impressed that our classical musicians could swing. Okay. Thank you. Some of the most amazing people in the world. I mean, really, just we're an incredible family. So we have dreams, which are fueled by faith. Faith is positioned by opportunity, which is built upon work. Yeah, unfortunately, you got to get up. I was talking to my second daughter the other day, and again, I think she enjoys it. Just this year, I've been giving her, as well as our the two boys, rides to school, and we're far south, east, west, but schools are kind of all over the place. So, in driving, she wanted a ride. She hates taking the metro. I said, okay, there's a deal. You have to listen to me. At least twice a week, Well, we were talking the other day about, just the idea of what's often termed as carrying one's cross. or the burden, like what burdens do we have that we carry? And hers was going to school. Well, you can imagine what I said. I'm not even gonna, I said, do you realize that people died for the right that you have today? So what your burden is actually a blessing that others could not do. So I believe that work equals effort times time. And I have learned just simply to work harder than I ever have in my whole life. And partly because right now, both my organizations are growing and expanding, and I find that it's like having 3 or 4 jobs that are juggled at every minute. But, wow. Speaking of work, sometimes some incredible work comes our way. Just a couple years ago, in 2012, we were approached by one of our, I would say, godparents at this point, because if it weren't for the Boeing company, we would not have been able to do our first performance in 2004. But this time I was approached to compose a 3-movement suite that would honor our soldiers as well as be relevant to football fans. I love these opportunities. I actually spend about 80% of my time as a composer in research mode. And research mode means that it's just study, surround. So for this, I had 3 or 4 films based on war. And I think one was called War, the one that I actually wrote this particular movement for. And I would just simply fill a notebook up with words, and emotions. Like, what does it feel like to know that your platoon is going to be ambushed in 5 minutes, while there's complete silence and birds chirping, for a 19-year-old person to have their finger on a very steady finger on a trigger, waiting for that it could be the end of their life. So, and plus with all of the just what's going on in the world, we I don't know. It's like we're comfortable when we know who our enemy is, but if we look at history, I say that the face of the enemy is always changing. And so we performed this work, we recorded this work for the Chicago Bears and Boeing in partnership with USO. And this is part of the 3rd movement of the Home and Away suite entitled The Face of the Enemy is Always Changing. Thank you. Oops. Okay, so work becomes balanced when supported by help. And help comes in 2 ways: resources and people. Resources and people. We can't do it alone. At least I can't. Oh my goodness. I was, again, just very blessed that my business partner, I met him when I was 14 years old. And we became best friends. We've been best friends, and it's always every year. Well, my job as the visionary is to basically think of crazy stuff like, okay, let's do this now. And and our executive director would either say, okay, or you've lost your mind this time. They usually don't say that I've lost my mind. They'll find some way to prove to me that it can't be done. And money does not matter. It really doesn't. I mean, I think, when I said work is effort times time, the resource of money helps it to happen faster. Like right now, if any of you would just write me $1 million check, we would accomplish so much next month. But if you don't, it'll take me longer. That's all. I'm not worried about that. So I've learned that if I don't have the resources, to find the resources, that the resources are there. They just simply have to. It's like the magnet. If I'm a magnet, I have to be closer to the source of the resource so that the resource can be attracted to me or to us. Especially now. We've been around for 11 years. I mean, we didn't think it was going to last the first year. So friends and cohorts who share your dreams can help with the heavy lifting, as in my case, of course, and to provide needed encouragement and influence. Now I'm talking to my daughter. Don't expect everyone, or for that matter, anyone, to share your dreams at first. You have to be willing to preach it and teach it, and that's really what advocacy is all about. As I said earlier when talking about the orchestra, I am daily surrounded by the most amazing people on the planet. In our offices, I should say, in our classrooms, on our stages, in our boardroom, with our funders, and with our students. During the year, we have a year-long program called Jazz Alive, which we're in about 14 schools. We approach music education from a very traditional sense, but instead of it being based on classical music, we incorporate jazz, so that if a student can play 2 notes, it's ready to improvise. They're ready. 3 notes is even better. Because what is improvisation? It's what we do every day. How many of you used a map to get here? Right. But when you saw that arrow saying get over on Sheridan Road, you got over. And that's what jazz is. It's responding. It's the moment. Thank you. And of course, I didn't plan that, but I felt like doing it. But here's the amazing thing, is now I feel really good. I don't know. I can go for hours. So our students, we have a summer jazz academy that this will be our 8th year, and it's the most amazing thing that I've ever experienced. We have students who have been a part of our camp, like Jada there at the top, who has been with us since she was 5th grade, and now she's a senior in high school. We have students who, I don't have her picture, but yeah, so Adasia here started out as a elementary student in the camp. She's now a camp counselor as a college student. We have Erendetta, who's, I don't know if you can see my arrow, but she's in the bottom. Oh, she's right here. Who actually started out as a camp counselor, who is now a strings instructor. So it's about evolution, as I said earlier. It's growing into position. And it's teachers teaching students and students teaching students. Even Charles, our maintenance man at Chicago State, unbelievable. We have zero, maybe like 1% of a sort of a discipline problem. And so I'm the discipliner, and I get to walk around and look tough, which is very hard for me to do. But I pulled this boy out and put him in the hallway, and as I'm talking to him, Charles comes up and gives him a lecture. It's like, great, here we go. And again, it's amazing that this sense of community all through music and through education. And we are having the camp again at Chicago State. Most of what we're hearing in the news is a little bit exaggerated, but they are going to survive. And it's important for us to have our camp at a university because we treat our students like college students. We want them to feel like college students because many of them, when they go to college, will be the first in their families to attend a university. So we prepare them as early as 6th grade. Okay, I always got to check the time because if I start this subject, oh my goodness, I don't know. I promised my wife that I would limit what I say about this new family that we met in all places, Havana, Cuba. Yeah, these are my kids. I could tell you so much every day. Matter of fact, let's do this. Yep. That's from Poland. Holy cow. Adriana, yeah. Was a flute player. Where's Adriana? She's in there somewhere. Every day I get 3 or 4 messages from kids from Cuba because I'm hopefully going back next month. And they're already rehearsing pieces they wanted me to hear. But what happened was in 2012, I performed at the 2008, performed at the Auditorium Theater for a Miles Davis festival. And another performing institution there was the River North Dance. So when I met Frank Chavez through executive director Brett Batterson, suggested that why don't we do something together? Let's just do a project. And so Frank and his family left Cuba when he was an infant. And so he always wanted to do some Cuban-inspired dance and music. So I said, it's perfect. And of course, it took less than 5 minutes to realize when I told him my research methodology that I have to become what I'm writing. He said, we got to go to Cuba. Yes, sir. So we did, 2012. And part of our people-to-people exchange was at the Universidad de las Artes. And when we first arrived, the vice president of the school just said, there's no music classes, today. There's no ensembles. There's just music classes and a few kids practicing. So I said, fine. My mantra for methodology for being inspired was not just simply to write Cuban music, but to write music that was a reflection of the people that I would meet. So every restaurant, every turn, I would take my trumpet out, put it on the table, and music was everywhere. So there was always a band playing. They would see my trumpet and, say, yeah, come, of course. And every time we played, it became a jazz festival. It was unbelievable. I met so many friends. So at the university, I sort of took the same approach. There was a trumpet player practicing in a room, and I kind of walk up and say, hi, hola, that's all I can say in Spanish. But I said, this is, I'm a trumpet player from Chicago. Chicago, oh. I said, what are you practicing? He said, Miles Davis. Oh man, okay. So I helped him with his posture and his air flow. Got to be a teacher first. And then we just started playing some Miles Davis songs. In come a trombone player, another trumpet player, a saxophone player, a vocalist, a bass player, a drummer, vibraphonist. Literally 25 students rushed the room, and an audience of 100 came like this. And so, our time was up, we had to leave, but we had such a great experience. We told the administration and the dean that we would be back. And thanks to the MacArthur Foundation in 2014, we received a grant, an international exchange grant to go back to Cuba. And of course, we decided it was no brainer. We have to go back with those students. Because the students at ISA, or Universidad de las Artes, are at such a high level, they equal our professional musicians here. And I have been a college professor in part of my life for probably collectively over 30 years. I've experienced, even here, I worked with a violinist who's now just one of the top jazz violinists in the country. So I'm used to seeing 1 or 2, maybe 5, maybe 6 out of 100 students. But the entire population. So when we went back to the university, this was in December, which was, we didn't realize it was their holiday break. So they were basically saying, anybody who wants to stay can stay. Please come. We have people from Chicago coming, form an orchestra. They didn't have enough people, so they went to the high school and got about 14, 15 kids from high school. They got some professionals to say, yeah, I'd love to try to play jazz and let's do this. So, because all they teach at university is classical music. So we had an amazing experience. The first thing that I did, well, when I, the orchestra's in front of me, I'm ready to conduct. I look at their faces and they're frowning. I said, no, we can't have this. And I heard later that the dean told them that, people from Chicago, Americans are very strict. So you better get it right. They said, he's gonna rehearse you, and if you make mistakes, he's gonna get out of here. So, I see all these frowns. I take out my cell phone. Matter of fact, I'll do this now. Hold on a second. Take out my cell phone. Uh-oh, wait a minute. And I just simply did this. You're doing it. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. And what is that? Exactly. So let's go over here. Yeah, it's I told you, it's not rocket science. I have no, Okay. So, then I said, stop. Hold those faces, right? Just hold it. Don't change. Now let's play the music. Change everything. And from then, after talking to the dean and the president of the university, said that from that moment, they were yours. And they would trust you to do anything. They trust us so much that last November, we brought 37 Cuban students, some of these very students, to Chicago to perform with 35 of our professional orchestra at the Auditorium Theater. It was simply amazing. And, well, it was a long story. We were able to get, I've never cried so much in my life. The week before the concert, we were at the point where we had to cancel the concert because the Cuban government just did not do their part in the securing the visas, securing everything. And we started basically a year in advance for this moment, and we found out it's not going to happen. But thank goodness our embassy, our brand new embassy, and a lot of begging from our end and support from Senator Durbin, they pushed it through. We were able to get 11 students to come on the Sunday. On Wednesday, we brought them to, oops, is that the picture? Northwestern University. So every day we had forums. We wanted our students, the Cuban students, to meet American students. And so here they are. And thanks to Dr. Tony Marie Montgomery for being an incredible host. She and her team, we had an incredible time. But we wanted the students to see just the splendor of Northwestern. Because if I showed you pictures of their facility, you would cry. I mean, Zoe went as I hired her as our photographer, and so she took some amazing pictures. And yeah, it would break your heart. But maybe it wouldn't break your heart because when you hear these kids play, it's mind-blowing. So we brought the students to Chicago. And, to see, wow, okay, I will stop because I will talk about 3 hours about that. So Wednesday night. Wednesday, we got the rest of the students here. So we had 11, and we had 37 total, so we had to get the rest Wednesday night, thanks to Southwest Airlines, who gave us vouchers for every single student. We got them on very expensive charter flights to Orlando because it was literally last minute. And then the problem started because we had to get every child on a plane to Chicago to hopefully do a rehearsal before the concert. The last student arrived at 2 o'clock in the morning, and they celebrated like you would not believe. Still, there's a problem. It's Thursday, the concert's Friday. How am I going to rehearse 2 hours of music? And again, this is classical music, so I like to take a very strict but relaxed stance in rehearsing. If something's not quite right, we're going to get it right. It means bring the tempo down. Let's very systematically work through this as an ensemble. Or I may say, okay, first violins, go to the next room, work it out while I get everyone else together. These students came in, and one of the pieces I wrote, it was a Cuban-inspired piece, very intricate string passage, and it was ba-da, ba-da-da, ba-da-da, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-da. These are for string players. Okay, so we had rehearsals with our musicians in the 11 the day before, and we literally had to slow it down for our professional musicians, and they're all good. I'm not saying they're not good, but this, it's the process to look, because first of all, Cuban music is not part of their training. So it is like learning another language, and when we learn a new language, we have to slow it down. So, we slowed it down. He said, okay, great. All right. Students from Cuba came, and literally, we ran through everything like, let's just run through. I said, someone called the union rep. We're not taking breaks, so don't call me about union rules. And we flew through it. We got to this passage, and everyone, especially in the string section of the Cuban students, they just kind of looked at each other and laughed. And they started dancing. Yeah. All of our musicians thought that they would have to mentor them. No, we learned a lesson. But all of that to say that now we are in a position, because the university actually offered me a job to launch a third stream program at the university. And of course, it can't be a job because the teachers there make $25 a month. Yeah. The janitors make $25 a month. The heart surgeons make $25 a month. So, but talk about opportunity, So we got to do it. We're figuring out a way to do it, and it is happening. We're going down next month, and hopefully 4 times a year we'll set up classes. But what's more important for me, and I'll end with this as far as the Cuban story, because I do want to have time for questions. Everyone's talking about Cuba. We were there at the very moment that President Obama made the announcement. I was in rehearsal. We're playing a piece called Diaspora that I wrote. And after I just explained the significance of slave ships coming from Africa to the new land, going all over. Some ships, families, we were broken up as families where my ancestors, some went to North America, some went to Cuba. And as soon as I gave the first ictus, the first downbeat, a tap on the shoulder, there's something incredible happening. You got to, let me announce it to the students. And one of our interpreters announced the fact that both Cuba and the United States were seeking to normalize relations while we were playing. And so the next day, 60 Minutes was there, and it turned out we were the only people anywhere that had Cuban reaction to the announcements, because and we were able to interview students and be on 60 Minutes, which was kind of cool. Scott Pelley was really cool. So anyway, it's something we just can't stop. We can't. There's just no stopping. Like, what's next? But in all of that, everyone's talking here about going to Cuba. What it's going to be like for Americans to go to Cuba. And we're even talking about people-to-people exchanges. There's something wrong with that. We're not talking about bringing Cubans here. That's an exchange. It's not just an exchange to go there and spend money, especially if it's money that's never going to reach the people. They're still going to make $25 a month. But I have never seen joy in my life than when they came. And since we only had 11 students first, Mark and Bertie, our executive director, we were the chauffeurs. We said, we can save a lot of money by not having the bus. Yes. So we chauffeured from the airport, and the things that we take for granted, like leaving Midway and being on Cicero, and when they saw the Golden Arch for the first time. We just bought a new family van, 2016, and it has, there's a map in your car. You put it in reverse, and there's a camera that shows the back. And they're actually going crazy, like, what? And then Mark calls me. They hear the phone ring in the car, and they didn't see me press the button on the steering wheel. Hey, Mark, what's up? His voice is coming through the speakers. Little things. And driving up to Stevenson, seeing this beautiful skyline, they went crazy. And they were saying, we hope that can we be near there? I said, no, we're going there. And then finally being downtown with the train over your head. Totally amazing. And they were like that the whole week. So I hope that my stories inspired you to continue to dream big dreams, to understand that the impossible is really only a dream away from reality. And actually, I'm talking to myself now. To take advantage of every opportunity that comes your way, comes my way, and that we'll create opportunities for others as we work, rest, and play. But I would like to leave you with one of my most memorable Chicago Jazz Philharmonic moments. Having an orchestra this size, we can only afford to play maybe once, maybe twice a year if we're lucky. We have a chamber ensemble that we can do smaller things. But again, this one concert, we produced ourselves, and our budget was nearly $90,000 for one concert. But we wanted to celebrate Nelson Mandela's 90th birthday at Millennium Park, 2008. I wrote a suite called Hope in Action. This is a portion of the last movement called Fanfare for the Uncommon Man. Thank you. So thank you so much for listening and spending your afternoon with me, and just have a great weekend. What, do we have time? Okay.
We have about 5 minutes for questions.
Wow, that was quick. You're like, I started teaching in another class. I have a third grader who, just like you. Yes, sir. Oh, okay.
Does third stream include converting classical existing pieces into jazz idioms, or is it limited to original composition?
You know, it's jazz, so there's no limit. I wrote a piece called Amadeus Had a Dream, and it's Amadeus. It's the Kirkel 176, fourth movement of a string quartet that has chromaticism, and so I kept the Mozart exactly the same because that's what the classical purists would want me to do, and superimpose jazz happening very subtly, but then it turns into jazz while remaining classical. So again, if I'm going to own the term, I'm going to make my own rules.
Why did I suggest the Great Gate at New Orleans from pictures of an exhibition?
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, I never thought about that. Yes, yes.
Although your music is phenomenal.
Thank you.
It's terrific. I love your rhythms, I love your beat, even the melodies in there.
Thank you.
They're spectacular. But third stream, if it's a fusion of jazz and classical, wasn't that something that George Gershwin tried to do 80 or 90 years ago?
Oh, I love this question. The answer is, oh, I'm so sorry. I think we're in the room alone. The question is, wasn't that something that George Gershwin did? Yes. But here's, if we want to get specific, part of the problem, it depends on when George Gershwin wrote what he wrote. Because he was primarily influenced by Tin Pan Alley, which was inspired by jazz. The turning point for me is Louis Armstrong. Because the way Louis Armstrong changed jazz in terms of the personality, in terms of the theory, everything was late 1920s. So if pieces that were written later, yes. But third stream covers the multitude. So even if there may be, there's an incredible opera that's opening, that's brought by the Lyric Opera's bringing. It's going to be performed at Harris Theater. It's an opera on Charlie Parker's life. And yeah, so we actually brought this composer, and he was our first commission. We commissioned the work, Daniel Snyder. And when I saw bits of the opera, and he even says it's not jazz, but there are jazz-inspired chords. So that falls under third stream as well. Yeah.
You actually sound more like Stravinsky.
That's my hero, Stravinsky. Yes, thank you. That's 2 more questions. Or 1 more. You have any questions, Zoe? I know. Well, we get it. Yes. Well, okay. Well, we do have one here, and then one here. I'll see you afterwards. Let's get these 2. Yeah.
So, Cuban musicians, where are they creating? Where's their music going to? Considering they've kind of been cut off from things for so long, and you came to them.
You're going to love this.
Okay.
So where does Cuban music go? Everywhere but the U.S. Everywhere but the U.S. The student that I met, it's because of the embargo, the relationship, but the student I met the first time, the trumpet player, he's actually in Lebanon. He's playing in a group that's sort of a review of the Buena Vista Social Club. Cuban musicians, it's an amazing education system where the students start in elementary school on the track to be musicians. So by the time they go to college, they're placed in bands. So many of them leave college to go work, and they'll come back and finish college. But yeah, I've never seen anything like it. It's pretty spectacular. Yes, sir.
There's something about labeling music that makes it easy to identify and say, well, if you listen to jazz and you listen to symphonic music, but once you listen to it via whatever the category is, the label is not essentially
Thank you.
constructive.
Yes.
I've got my younger son's third year at Oakland Conservatory as a jazz studies major. He doesn't use the word jazz.
Yes. Can you hear him? Yeah, so he's basically saying labels, music is labeled, and I think it's kind of an American thing that we do to identify it. We want to be able to identify the music, but once the music is there, it's really a disservice to continue labeling music as being something, because it can change, and it should change, because it's inspired. It should be inspired to become, well, music should do exactly what I talked about. It should have a dream. It should work. It should have opportunity. It should have faith to become what it will become. And I'll leave you with this idea. I always say this. There's chicken. Okay? We could probably talk about, as many people in here will have this many different ways of preparing chicken. But it's still chicken. Barbecued. And then there's barbecue. Man, I got this new grill. Oh, I had a grill built, and it's like, we call it Big Orb. And it's a fire-breathing dragon. And the way he cooks, oh my goodness. It all depends on where the meat's placed on, oh my goodness. Well, whether it's hickory, but again, it's all chicken. But once you eat the chicken, you don't keep looking at it and saying, you are barbecue. You enjoy it. So why aren't we like that with our music? Why do we say, I am hip hop, I am jazz, I am classical? Can't we, if we, treat our music like chicken and just enjoy it all? Thank you, guys. Thank you, Chris. My pleasure. My pleasure.